Welcome to BIFEX 2018. Session 2 is about to begin. Please join us to learn more about building powerful brands.
How are you all? Are you well? Everyone happy? Excellent, that's good. So my name's Mark, and I want to talk to you about how purpose is the difference between being good, everyone's good, aren't they, and being great. Purpose is the difference between being average and being astonishing. Now, I start every one of my talks the same way. I like a sing-song. Has anybody got a big voice on them? Yeah, anybody's up for a bit of a sing-song? I'm looking at you, sir. Is it me you're looking? I'm joking, obviously. You don't know who I am, so what I've done is I've very handily squeezed my career highlights into one slide. Everything I'm proud of is on here. And I'll tell you a couple of them, because the rest are for tomorrow. You're coming to my workshop tomorrow, aren't you? It's really good. Right. So firstly, I'm old, I'm 49, I'm 50 this year, and I grew up in the 1970s, 1960s. Those of you may not know what England was like in the 1970s. I'll do you a quick, short summary. It was really shit. It was really bad because we had dreadful food and everyone was on strike, right? So those two things, food, the music was amazing, but the food and the strikes were big, right? So for some of you, the 1970s are just a playlist on your iPhone. For the rest of us, it was a real place. And I grew up in this real place. And I was at school, in a tiny little school that provided really good meals. We had things like vegetables and vitamins and balanced meals. But at home, all of our meals were like really shit, like dreadful, cheap food. We were eating things that we didn't know where it came from. Convenience was the watchword. And I felt that we needed a bit of this rubbish in school. So I took the entire school out on strike. I was 10. And I thought, enough is enough. I want some junk food at school. So we had 120 kids marching up and down the playground. And after 3 hours, we won. I won. We were allowed to bring sandwiches into school for dinners. So I went home that night to my mum, and I said, hey, Mum, there's been this thing at school. I didn't tell her it was my fault because I wanted my pocket money, right? But I said, Mum, there's been this thing at school, and from now on in, we're going to be allowed to bring sandwiches instead of dinners. And my mum correctly said, Mark, some people can bring sandwiches. You're having a hot dinner every day and it's going to be at school. So on the first day of the new regime, I'm stood at the front of the queue with my tray. And I'm having dinners and all my friends are having sandwiches. They're all eating cheese from a tube with bits of prawn in it, and they're all eating the junk food they have at home. And I've got my tray, and I've got the nice, there's only ever one nice dinner lady. There's like 3 dreadful ones and 1 nice one. I had the nice one in front of me, Mrs. Thomas. And Mrs. Thomas knew it was my fault. Everyone knew it was my fault. It's a really small village. And Mrs. Thomas looked at me and she said, Mark, I'm glad you're still with us. I said, yes, Mrs. Thomas. She said, do you know what would happen, Mark, if everybody had sandwiches? No, Mrs. Thomas. She said, I wouldn't have a job, Mark. We wouldn't be here. My son, Richard, wouldn't have a Christmas present. Now, I didn't give a shit about Richard because I didn't like him, but I really liked Mrs. Thomas, and it was one of those really kind of prescient moments that sit on your shoulders where you think, with power comes responsibility. I need to take this in. And she was right. 3 years later, there were no dinner ladies. There was no school dinners at Sharnford Church of England Primary. But the lesson stayed with me a lot longer. Other stuff on here you don't really need to know about, to be honest with you. More strikes. I was head of sustainability at Asda, part of Walmart. I ran an agency on eco-design. I helped set something up called the Do Lectures. I wrote a book. And now I run an alternative creative agency where I help companies realign with what they've forgotten they are. I help companies navigate a different future. Some of that is around sustainability, some of that isn't. I work with Coca-Cola, who we've heard about already, Amazon, we've heard about already, Nike, I'll talk about that in a minute. And I build startups inside big businesses. So those big, flabby old businesses that have forgotten what it's like to be quick and agile, I help build startups inside them. All of that is irrelevant. My favorite thing on this slide is I make my own hot sauce, hotsmokybastard.com. You can buy it online sometimes when I can be bothered to make it. And I guess you've all got a side project. Everyone's got a side project. Always have a side hustle. Always be doing something on the side just for you. And the beauty of this brand at the bottom is I created the recipe on a Saturday, I wrote the website on a Sunday, and my shop was live and trading on a Monday. 3 days from concept through to customer. And I knew by Tuesday whether people were going to buy it and what flavors they liked the most. This is interesting. You could do all that in 1 day now, but I took 4 days to do it. Roll back 20 years when I was at Asda, that's 4 years' work. Maybe a year's work. So the whole way that we innovate and change is changing hugely. Now I want to talk to you about purpose, because purpose matters. Every single one of my clients, every single one, is struggling with why they're here. To make money, obviously, we need to make money. That's a given, okay? Because you've got to pay for the food that you eat. But those companies that attract the best people most consistently will outlast all the other companies. They will earn more money. And purpose matters. And I'm going to explain how and why. And I think it's really easy to go to university or not, go and get a job, and then get to the point where you're my age, 49, and you've kind of forgotten what you're about. You're wealthy, got a nice house, 4 kids, 2 of which have left home already. Not long and they've all gone. But I've forgotten what am I about, because when I die, what are people going to say about me? Are they going to say, oh, he sold loads of briefcases in the Q4 of 2019? I don't want to be famous for that. I want to be famous for making people's hearts beat faster. I want to be famous for designing products and services that make the world a better place, because we can't grow a business by making our customers fat and ill. We can't grow a business on a dead planet. All of these things have changed. So yes, we have to make money, but we have to make money well. So are you where you're meant to be, or have you just climbed the stairs and forgotten what you came up for? I used to be the guy that wanted to change stuff. I used to be the woman that wanted... That's a lot of my clients. And the challenge is, we're going to talk through some of the changes we're going to see in society in a minute, and Sean's going to do lots more of that. But as the world shifts, the real challenge that we have is how we attract and retain the best people. I work with retailers in the UK and the US, and they cannot get great people. I can buy anything anywhere, including on my magic black puddle. I can buy it anywhere. Why do I want to go into shop X or shop Y? Because the people make me feel special, and they lift me a little higher. And there's a shortage, and Brexit is really bad news from this point of view. We're losing great people. So how do we attract and retain the best talent in the world? And how can you stand apart from your competitors? Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, famous for lots and lots of things, one of which was saying, it's not good enough to be the best of the best. You've got to be the only person that does what you do, the only company that do what you do. It's really interesting. If you want to succeed, you have to believe in something bigger than you. And Jeff Bezos at Amazon really enjoyed that talk earlier. The most innovative, the most scary, the most amazing business on the planet. Said if there's a problem you're trying to solve and it can be solved in your lifetime, it's too small. So true. And how do you attract your tribe? How do you attract people that will come back to you no matter how much you charge them? No matter how behind the competition you are in technology. This is tribal. People believe in purpose. People want to believe what you believe. And what about What about those companies? I grew up with this company. They were formed in '64. They changed their name to Nike in '71. I was born in '68. This was one of my favorite companies for a very, very long time. The first brand I ever really wanted. What was their purpose? Well, they kind of forgot it. Some of you may remember this advert. Some of you may not.
I run 17 miles every morning. People ask me how I keep my teeth from chattering in the wintertime. I leave them in my locker.
It's brilliant. I leave them in my locker. And I was really lucky to run a workshop for these guys about 5 years ago. And I said to them, what are you all about? What is your purpose? And they said, oh, we're about sporting excellence. We're about, the pinnacle athletic achievements. And I said, no, you're about moving more. You're not about those things. And they said, yeah, but we are, because we've got all these celebrity sports people that we endorse. And I said, how's that going for you? How's the celebrity endorsement going? Anybody here want to buy a golf club from a misogynist? No one. No one. What about this man? Anybody here look at Oscar Pistorius and think, that's who I want to be? These aren't my words. These are Nike's words, by the way. No one. And what about this man?
This is my body, and I can do whatever I want to it. I can push it, study it, tweak it, listen to it. Everybody wants to know what I'm on. What am I on? I'm on my bike, busting my ass 6 hours a day. What are you on?
And somewhere along the line, they lost who they were, and I still love them because they make great product. But they lost what they stood for, and they aligned themselves with people that didn't align themselves with them. And consequently, they were beaten soundly by Adidas. Over the last 4 years, Adidas have outperformed them in kind of cool stakes. And it's taken them a long time, but they're back. They're back really well.
I've had the longest day, man. You said you were going to come to me, now you're telling me to come to you. I'm not getting on a cycle.
Cycle? That's light work. Man's got to run 2 miles from ends just to get to training. Serious, bro?
2 miles? Really? I have to run all the way from Zone 6 with my school there. Oh, you think that's tough? I have to run through Peckham at night.
What's wrong with Peckham?
Oh yeah? Well, I gotta fight these weights, man, just today. This is my multi-purpose. Council funding, football, tennis, basketball,
And I won't play it all because it's 3 minutes. You've all seen that advert, yeah? Anyone not seen that advert? It's brilliant because suddenly Nike are relevant to people in London. Nike are relevant to people. That is just about normal people moving more. And they've rediscovered their purpose, and mark my words, over the next few years, they're going to grow back to what they were. Now, I've been around a long time, and I've grown up in really disruptive times. I've grown up in a time where companies, when I was really young, companies didn't have a purpose other than make money. And what I've done is I've pulled together my history through time. This is very self-indulgent, but I think you might like it. My history through time, and aligned it to where companies have developed purpose. And I may have put a bit of music in it as well. So, this is me, aged about 7, okay? I was born in 1968, the height of the social rights movement in America. This is when people begin to find their purpose. This is when Gil Scott-Heron began to make music that was poetry, that was music, that changed the way you thought about yourself and where you lived. This was a spring, but this was a spring in America. And we had the hippies movement, and we had Bowie. Bowie's a perennial. Bowie will always run through what I do massively. We had second wave feminism, we had glam rock, and we had Bowie. My favorite company with purpose at the time, and maybe that purpose isn't there anymore, NASA. Who didn't want to be a spaceman or woman? Everyone did. I wanted to go and explore the world that didn't exist around me. And that era, all about Bowie. You can't listen to this and not feel magic. And then I loved Nike. And their purpose was really clear. They wanted people to move more. They were for normal people, as I've said. And I really got that. This was the Nike Wally Waffle, one of the most successful shoes they ever made. Dick Bowerman led the company's athletic endeavor at the time and design, and they made shoes that people wanted. They changed the way we ran, weirdly, but that's another story.
Is she really?
And about that time, punk arrived. And I love punk. I love punk for lots of reasons. It had a purpose, and that purpose was to change society, ever so slightly. But like many things, punk only got better when women got involved. And suddenly punk became beautiful, melodically beautiful. My favorite brand at that time? Sony. Some of you are so young, you don't even know what a video is. But those of you that are a bit older will remember the VHS versus Betamax battle. And the wrong one won. Betamax was better, had more sound channels and better video quality, but it didn't matter because the big picture houses were bribed by VHS to only release their videos, their films, on VHS. And Betamax lost. So the purpose of having great audio and video was not communicated. The consumer didn't get this at all. They just wanted to see E.T. earlier on VHS than they could see it on Betamax. So this was my kind of era at the time. And I was growing up in a place called Coventry, which was famous for many things, one of which was the car industry. And the car industry was one of the first importers of labour, so it was one of the first kind of like ethnic importer of labour. And we had a lot of people from Jamaica and the West Indies moving into Coventry because we needed to build cars cheaper and faster, and we didn't want to do the work ourselves, which is inexcusable. And that meant that we created the second wave of ska, where you had kind of black and white music mix. You didn't have any trouble. And this era was so amazing and rich in terms of creativity in the Midlands. And I love it. And their purpose was unity. The record label was called Two Tone. I bought into it. And then after ska, we had the New Romantics, because every single thing is a reaction to the other thing before. And ska and punk were very pared back, very, very ugly, very basic music, beautiful but basic. New Romantics was much more flamboyant, even poetic. And so we had the rise of these almost flouncy styles. All of the big brands that we recognize with purpose, around purpose today, were born at that time. Seventh Generation, Tom's, Whole Foods, Burt's Bees, and my favorite, Elnet Hairspray, because I had a very complex do at the time, because it was that era. It was the era of looking like this. And like every single movement, someone has to take it too far. So this beautiful, that drop there, beautiful, turned into this. I've got no words for this band. I don't even like them, but you may like them. They're just not for me. Because you forget your purpose and then you become being about making money. And then in the 80s, we saw the rise of the Body Shop, a brand about no testing on animals. Really clear purpose. They boomed. And then they were bought. And they were so powerful that L'Oreal left them alone. And they're not owned by L'Oreal anymore. They did a relatively good job of managing them, actually. And I love this era for lots and lots of reasons, mainly because of the Smiths. Because this guitar star is genius. And then I went to university, and this was the late 80s. And there was a brand called Lucozade. Do you all know Lucozade, the brand? No, it's like a fizzy glucose drink that was marketed for people who were dying. It's quite short-sighted. It's what you bought when your relatives were in hospital ill. So he's gone beyond care. I'll take him a bottle of Lucozade. Now, that isn't going to work either, right? And it was associated with being really ill. But the thing about the late 80s was there was an explosion in drug culture. People would go out dancing all night and take ecstasy. You don't want to drink beer. I don't know about these things, but I'm told that you don't want to drink beer when you've taken ecstasy. You want a glucose drink. So suddenly, Lucozade, for dead people, was being drunk in clubs by people who were very, very much alive. And a singer called Adamski put an album out called NRG, and on the front of it, he put a bottle of Lucozade. And SmithKline Beecham, that owned Lucozade, went absolutely livid and said, no, we don't want to be associated with drug culture. We don't. And then somebody had a little word in their ear and said, think about the benefits. And suddenly, Lucozade changed how they sold themselves. They changed their purpose. They weren't for people who were dying. They were for people who wanted to perform better, not just on the dance floor with the big moves, although it helped. This was for sports people. This was for when you were driving tired. This was about 110% effort. This was a change in purpose. And then, of course, the best band at that time was the Stone Roses. You all know that, though, yeah? I can barely stand still. I'm really trying. But like any other white boy from the heart of the British Midlands, my real love was hardcore American rap, obviously. And this was when rap mattered. The purpose of Public Enemy was equality. The purpose of Public Enemy was letting people know that if you lived in certain towns, ringing 911 did not work if you were black. And we've forgotten this for a long, long time. Favourite brand at that time was Rizzler, which we won't go into. And I love this era. And then I had my own children, and I got into a bit of Britpop. Sean loves Britpop. He'll talk to you about that later, I feel certain. And we lost our way. This isn't a purposeful musical movement. This wasn't even a purposeful time. But I had a purpose, so I had kids. And this brand began to grow because it was organic, and I wanted to have really healthy kids that weren't poisoned. So I flocked to this purposeful brand. Music at this point was dreadful. We had this thing called New Rave. I'm not even going to let it go on any further. It drove me crackers. And then we had a whole load of other stuff, and it all started here with the Internet 2.0. And I can't tell you how powerful the democratization of communication has. This isn't about technology. It just isn't. We've heard that already. This is about me having a voice. This is about me being able to find a company that I agree with, buy my jeans from a handmade manufacturer based on the coast of Wales because I believe what he believes. And I couldn't do that without the internet. The internet allows us to communicate our purpose in ways that we didn't know. We've democratized communication, we've democratized retail, we've got third wave feminism and more of that, we've democratized creativity, the gig economy, a bit of terror, capitalism 2.0, socialism, and as if by magic the music industry has woken up and they're angry as well. Run the Jewels from Atlanta. My favorite city in the world is Atlanta at the moment. These guys, they're singing about stuff that matters again. This isn't about how big your car is or how furry your coat is. Both lovely. This is about equality again. And as some of you may have seen at the Brits Awards and Music Awards in the UK recently, you'll have also seen about the burning of Grenfell Tower, a massive tower block in West London, and the fact that actually only poor people from this part of the world were in there. And it's dreadful, and no one's taken it seriously until I absolutely love this guy. Stormzy stood up at the Music Awards and did this.
My pen show. Like, yo, Theresa May, where's that money for Grenfell? Well, you thought we just forgot about Grenfell, you criminals, and you got the truth to call us savages. You should do some jail time.
And grime is the most exciting musical movement of today because it matters. Because it's about things that matter. It's not like rap, it's better than that. It's all about equality. And if we look globally at where we are, disruption is now normal. Change is bloody inevitable. How it was done yesterday is not how it's going to be done tomorrow, and nothing stays the same, and neither should you. And this is the problem. When you see the world changing, but you're hanging on to the old way, it's not going to work for you. And purpose is back. And as I said right at the beginning, I talked with Mrs. Thomas. With power comes responsibility. You represent or you franchise some of the most powerful brands on the planet, some of the most powerful brands in this country. That's a privilege, that's a treat. The only way we can make our society better is if we lead it with commerce. Business is good. Business makes things better. If you align business with purpose, it's magic. The change that we've got coming is huge, and I'm going to skip through these because you don't need to hear them all. But the big shifts in power that we're seeing from west to east, and you sit in the middle, you're in a great position geographically. I can't begin to tell you. From male to female, from the old to the young, or from old ways of thinking to young ways of thinking, from the retailer to the consumer, from the professional to the amateur, from physical to digital, linear to circular, from facts to post-truth we're going to hear about, from jobs to a call-in, and from products to services. Hands up if you want more stuff in your life. I've got too much stuff in my life, thank you, sir. I've got too much stuff in my life already. I don't want more things. I want better things. I want products that I love. And we've seen this big trend towards market dominance where the big players own massive amounts of the market, and that's okay. But that's going to then leave hyper-competitivity around it. You're going to have one big player and lots of little ones. So how do you stand out as a little player? You've got to sit in purpose. You've got to understand what you believe in. If I look at my clients now and I look at the ones that are attracting the best talent, they're the ones that are really clear about what they're about. If I look at the ones that are attracting no talent, they don't have a clear purpose. They don't have a clear Velcro, a stickiness. And that doesn't need to be a worthy purpose. It doesn't need to be about sustainability or ethics even. It just needs to be about really clear. This is what we do. This is what we believe in. This is why we do it. And there's been so many changes, and all of these things, that the collapse of capitalism 1.0 cannot be underrated as a stimulus for change. And all of those power shifts, they're making things better, not worse. But they're making things uncertain. So my belief is that purpose makes you stronger. My belief is that good is the new cool. It certainly is in the UK and the US. And my belief is that every single one of you does great work. No matter what you do, whether you're running a restaurant, whether you're running a fashion house, whether you're a third sector, it doesn't matter to me at all what you're doing. My belief is the work you do is powerful. My belief is that every single one of us has got a superpower, and the biggest sadness is dying without having discovered it. And my belief is that business and commerce is the way to unleashing those things and making a better place. So my last few slides, sell better things. Don't sell bad things better. The world is full of average, and that's not you, is it? I know statistically some of us are in the average. But it's not you. No one got up this morning and decided they were going to average everybody else. That's not a thing. And with power comes responsibility. That little boy in front of Mrs. Thomas understood this. So my advice to you is to be a bit more left, and a bit more left and a little less right. Thank you so much for your time and indulgence.